Hello, my name is Leoncio P. Olobia, and today I'm going to talk about communication and organization um, on the topics process, structure, and culture. We will discuss the three concepts based on three important schools in organizational communication. We have the functional school, interpretive and critical, and the Montreal school. From the point of view of the functional school, process in an organization with emphasis on communication states that communication is a form of transmission. What does it mean? It simply means that communication usually is transmitted from upper management, when management decisions are being made, like our managers would send out memos and other important communication down to the members for compliance. This is a transmittive way of communication where the members are receivers to the information that is being sent from the management. So there's a sender-receiver kind of relationship. And normally, communication and transmission states that members are considered as containers of information. They comply to what is being given to them, but what is disseminated to them from management, usually without questioning. And in some organizations, this can lead to a stability and smooth flowing of information because people go about their daily practice as told to them by the management. So process is linear and hierarchical, meaning to say there is a top-down relationship, top-bottom approach, where again this hierarchy is accentuated in the transmission of information from management. And this is very prevalent in bureaucratic processes where members tend to agree and tend to comply with the requirements of the organization for stability and growth. So one example here would be management decides on important issues and transmits them to the members for compliance without questioning. So it is kind of a one-way transmittal of memos from supervisors. It's very standard in the functional school. Next is the interpretive critical school. So interpretive actually has the idea of intersubjective meanings and construction of meanings being done by the members themselves within an organization. So if the functional school would like to focus on how communication is transmitted from upper management, in the interpretive critical school, meanings are emergent. They are created by the people, the members within the organization. And the co-construction of meanings is a manifestation of their daily practice, how they go about with their daily lives. There are issues regarding power relations, or there are issues about discrimination and such. This interpretive school would encourage intersubjective meanings that are created. Okay, an example would be people create interpretations of their life in an organization. So, for example, if one is a member of an organization, he sees himself as being part of a community. His self-involvement defines the process of his communicative behavior. So it connotes his interactive communication, how he deals with the co-members, and what are the situated practices, among themselves as they create these meanings within themselves rather than being told. Okay, and moving on, we have the Montreal School. The Montreal School emphasizes orientational. Orientational, what does it mean? It simply means that these meanings are negotiated further, not just by way of sharing, but they are disagreed upon or agreed upon. Let's say in a kind of an organization where there are multiple views, multiple perspectives from different members of the group. During meetings, the management would have some important issues in this case, and then there would be dialectical tensions that can emanate from the members because they can have different opinions and perspectives of of a certain issue. And in this case, there can be a dissensual dimension or conflict that arises from these perspectives. And they are usually different perspectives that are united by a common goal. So just like in any organization where there are various points of views, like in strategic planning workshops where members share different views on how to go about with the organizational goals. The target is common, but the process of achieving the target tends to be multi-perspective. And these meanings that are negotiated characterize Montreal School of organizational process. Okay, to continue with our discussion of the process within the functional school, according to DITS, normative researchers indicate that communication is informational, which also holds true with the idea of transmittive communication. It also tells us that organizations are open to description, prediction, and control, and this states the level of balance and stability that an organization achieves because of that normative quality. And also, management can manipulate information for its own stability. As previously discussed, because there is a hierarchical relationship, usually the upper management that is the decision-making body would actually set goals that seems to be accepted by the general majority, including the members of the group, without questioning. This acceptability is a normative process that binds organizational practice. And communication as transmission exemplifies supervisor-subordinate relationship. Once again, because of the hierarchy, usually the top management as the dominant structure is the one that creates this domineering, behavior with the subordinate members who tend to be containers of whatever like policy is coming from upper management. And the process is the one defining the organization itself. Okay, moving on. Within interpretive critical school, it also focuses on human practices and activities that are meaningful to the people within the organization. So the activities and practices of the individual will have a sense of significance unto them. That's why they are actually doing it, not just because they are being told. What is important in the critical school and interpretive school is that people create their own meanings and interpretations, as previously discussed. And because of that, members' communication are constitutive and reflexive, so that what comprises their daily practice, their communication practice, is actually the one that means a lot to them, because they are the ones that create and produce and co-produce those symbolic meanings, as the interpretive school implies. From the Montreal School, due to meanings negotiation through multiple and different perspectives, Montreal School encourages creative imagination to unfold with each voice being heard. What does it mean? Because in the Montreal School, there is this consensus of like say management that hears what the perspectives and opinions are being shared by the members, so that a stable decision is reached. Um, Organizations grounded in MAs also encourage critical discourse, and because of this difference of opinions, they tend to dwell on analysis, and they compare, and they make sense of the decisions with critical processing. A good example to this would be the Senate Ribbon Committee in the Philippine Senate, where the senators are actually what they are scrutinizing, let's say, an individual or a group of individuals for an issue that surrounds the society, and the opinions of different stakeholders, the individuals, the general public matter during the Senate investigation, and usually they invite specialists to air their side until a decision is being made later on based on those results from the interviews conducted, and in which case the outcome is a result of the processes that have transpired before. So in this case, different opinions are being heard. Okay, then moving on, another concept that is important in our lecture is structure within an organization. Say, okay, from a functional perspective, from the functional school, structure is rather static. Static meaning to say that the linearity and the objectivity of the culture of the structure in itself is the one that is defined by the management. For instance, it is predetermined and it is controlled by the management, meaning the structure is the one that is defining what corporate culture is all about. It is disseminated unto the people and it is being complied by the members. And the structure can also include the power and authority which resides in management. When you join an organization, we usually have certain authorities and people who are powerful who tend to rule over the organization, and we respect that power. And that is structure in itself. And the rules and procedures are those for compliance by everyone. We come to an organization and we know that there are rules. We have to follow them. We have to adhere to the rules in order for us to be, helpful members within the organization. And of course, this structure is a form of control from management and how to go about um, organizational practice in general. So an example would be school administrators that exercise control where members comply. So of course, when our school administrators will send out memos and written documents for us to sign, that concurs the idea that we are actually complying with what is being told to us. Um, from the interpretive school or critical school, the structures are emergent. They are not fixed and objective. They are subjective, in other words, because these meanings are constructed and co-constructed by people themselves. The identities of the individuals that define a sense of self, they also form part of the structures of the organization as members interpret them. So, like for instance, if a member would like to join an organization, he has a sense of self prior to joining the organization, and at the same time, he can develop a certain organizational self, which can also become an identity in itself, and therefore creating a sense of structure. And structure in here is also internally drawn, meaning to say the meanings and the actions that emanate within the people are inherent upon themselves, and can also be externally drawn because it can also be involving other people who are interacting with the internal members. So it's like a a meeting of the external and external and internal influences within an organization. And next is production, reproduction of structure through interaction. So in the interpretive school, okay, structure is not objective. It is emergent and it is subjective, and it produces and reproduces itself according to the meanings constructed by the individuals. They are not final. They are emergent or developing, in other words. Okay, from the Montreal School, structure is relational, oriented with communication, caught in a web of interlocking relationship between actors. We have diverse perspectives united with a common goal. So, of course, in a Montreal school, structure is what it's a web of interactions, coming from different perspectives, and we can have dialectical tensions over here. We can have consensus and dissensus, a meeting of uniting the opposites in trying to achieve a common goal. and the actors here are engaging in the process of finding meanings, and it involves relationships that are enhanced. So community practice, it could be an example. When you have an organization, when you are in an organization, there are members who can start as apprentices. They follow what is being told to them, and then the mentors guide them. They facilitate in the growth and development of the apprentice, and this relationship is a kind of a community of practice, involving negotiations between people of an organization. So we can also have orientation among supervisors and clerks, producers and editors. Faculty members engage in social interaction more than just communication. So they go deeper into the structures of meanings, like the example that I said earlier about strategic planning that involves multiple perspectives. So people are actually engaging in different ideas, and then they come up with a solid solution based on multiple perspectives. From the point of view of structure, within the functional school, formal structure with the presence of authority, that's usually where power is usually assigned, as previously denoted. Uh, like when members join an organization, there's already a leader who is assigned with that organization. And the concept of distanciation, for example, a chain of command, that includes top level, or executive, and the managers who are involved in communicating with and designing structure for those under them, and then the technical staff as the lowest level of of the chain of command. And this is also exemplified in the top-down communication flow within the chain of command, very much present in bureaucratic organizations. And likewise, structure also exemplifies identity as structure in itself. The embodiment of norms, beliefs of individual identities comprise also the structure. For example, a professional identity, like if you're a teacher, would have standard practices, ethical codes, and what are the qualities of a professional, are being exercised by the individual. Like say he is in school, he has to act professionally at all times. And then there will be sub-identities that would refer to, let's say, a regionalization, where these identities of some professionals like the teacher in school will also have an identity as being a father at home. So it's like a duality of structures that an individual performs. Okay? From the interpretive school or critical school, the system structure as products of interaction produced and reproduced. For example, within an organization, when people express their meanings within a group, these meanings will further create something else, usually a higher state of, let's say, an element. Following systems thinking, interactions among individuals can create a structure based on summation and the higher elements generated. Like when oppressed workers in an organization come together and air their sides, and then they form solutions in order to address their disgruntled feelings. So it's what this is telling us is that within their interactive communication, they further produce something else, which is the binding or the solution that comes out from the individual individual interpretations. Then we have culture. Culture, as from the point of view of functional school, corporate culture as innate culture, where members of an organization comply. It is deterministic and objective. So objective in the sense that it is given. It is a rational culture. Culture is objective, regular, and smooth flowing. It is objective because it is determined by the organization in itself. When you go to an organization, structure is already present, which you have to comply. And then it involves prediction, control, and manageability. So in this way, the managers can actually control the way of doing things in the organization, and that process is a cultural practice which is accentuated in the control. Organizational culture as a management tool. So the culture in itself can become a way of trying to organize, the organization. It could be a way of creating a consensus among people to comply with. It defines the culture, and in this sense, it becomes a tool for management. An example would be culture of management as decision makers in a school. Faculty members respond to various memos by complying. Academic freedom centered on freedom of expression that is bound to rules and norms of let's say in my school. So in this case, culture as an academic freedom from the point of view of functional school is bound to the rules and procedures of the university, not just by the students themselves. Then we have the interpretive critical school, where culture is everyday life of the members. It is a common practice. It is how they interpret their life. Meanings are emergent, symbols are constructed among people, and they create their own cultural artifacts. Intersubjective interpretation of issues such as discrimination and repression with the idea of emancipation. So people are actually developing their sense of participation. Reality, of course, is subjective within the critical school. Example would include faculty members discussing about how unfairly they are being treated, and the values within an organization as espoused by the members themselves. Okay, those are the intersubjective meanings. And finally, we have the Montreal School, where culture is what's a product of interaction of different cultures. So it is an exchange. It also involves the dialectical tensions that define the culture through symbolic discourse. It is participative and active and explains different points of view from members. Okay, it means that the Montreal School engages in a larger worldview. Okay, where different people come together to encourage unity of opposite meanings. So they dwell on the agreements and disagreements, and strategic meetings. In strategic meetings, they are there is unity in diversity, and the organizational goals are expressed in such a way that the cultural interaction is like mutually binding, even if they are not in constant agreement with each other. Before we conclude this lecture on culture, I would like to point out the three schools, functional, interpretive, and Montreal School, in terms of some of the anecdotes, that are presented in the modules for this subject. There's this concept of the breakfast drama from the functional school, where managers and executives would gather around their members, and during this breakfast session, the executives would give out jokes and pep talks and short conversations to make the members feel comfortable, and then when they are actually already at ease, management will be able to wield control by way of gathering some consensus over an important issue without the members knowing that they are actually being manipulated in that sense. So control is a very important factor in functional school. Moving on, in interpretive and critical school, there's a story about the struggles of the workers, where they try to air their views among themselves, verbally and symbolically with gestures. And in this manner of gathering together their sentiments, some of them, they may be able to succeed, by winning war against, let's say, the dominant party, their supervisors. And in some cases, they do not. What is important in this critical school, from the point of view of culture, is that their sentiments, their disgruntled feelings, define their sense of oneness. And their gestures are representations of their true sentiments. And then finally, we have the Montreal School, where as an offshoot of these divergent views that the management encourages, there is such a thing as a resistance, towards the end. Meaning to say, not all ideas that are being presented can actually be a solution oriented idea, and as a consequence of which, modernist cultures have given rise to postmodernism, where there is resistance, not necessarily opposition. So in this manner, these different views can actually have this deconstruction by themselves, with realities being destroyed, and then a non-reality can turn to a reality in that sense. So when Derrida's point of view of deconstruction, that starts with symbolic reality or symbolism. This semiosis, the subjective interpretations, can actually intensify, so that at the end of that interpretations results this simulacra, or the disappearance of meanings. And in this point of view, organizations can actually, they can destroy or deconstruct themselves. The arbitrary meanings can be explored, and then non-reality here in this sense becomes a reality. So how does this apply in organizations? Organizations really do, they sort of achieve a kind of a death and a rebirth in its own. Those organizations that die because they are no longer relevant will have some ways to adjust, to recover, and in this sense they can disconnect themselves from power, from centrality, and form new notions of organizational culture in that sense. Thank you very much. So that concludes my lecture. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much.